The shattered remains of my favorite mug lay scattered across the kitchen floor, a fitting metaphor for my life at that moment. I stood there, frozen, staring at the mess as my mind raced to process the information I'd just uncovered. "Clara? What was that noise?" Nate's voice called from the living room, snapping me out of my trance. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "Nothing," I managed to croak out. "Just dropped a mug." Footsteps approached, and Nate appeared in the doorway. His brow furrowed with concern as he took in the scene. "Are you okay? You look pale." I couldn't bring myself to look at him. Instead, I focused on the shards of ceramic at my feet. "I'm fine," I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. Nate stepped closer, reaching out to touch my arm. I flinched away instinctively, and confusion flashed across his face. "Clara, what's wrong?" The dam inside me broke. "How long?" I demanded, finally meeting his gaze. "How long what?" he asked, but I could see the flicker of panic in his eyes. I thrust my phone at him, the incriminating email still displayed on the screen. "How long have you been sleeping with her?" Nate's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, fumbling for words. Clara, I can explain." "Explain?" I laughed bitterly. "Explain how you've been cheating on me with some woman named Melissa, how you've been lying to me for God knows how long." "It's not what you think," Nate pleaded, reaching for me again. I stepped back, my heel crunching on a piece of broken mug. "Don't touch me," I hissed. "Just don't." The front door opened, and I heard Ava's cheerful voice. "Mom! Dad! I'm home!" Panic seized me. I couldn't let our daughter see us like this. "We'll discuss this later," I whispered fiercely to Nate. "Act normal." Nate nodded, his face a mask of guilt and fear. We both plastered on fake smiles as Ava bounded into the kitchen. "Hi, sweetie," I said, my voice unnaturally high. "How was school?" Ava's eyes widened as she noticed the broken mug. "What happened?" "Oh, just a little accident," I said, forcing a laugh. "Nothing to worry about. Why don't you go start your homework? I'll be there to help in a minute." As soon as Ava was out of earshot, I turned back to Nate. "We're not done," I warned him. "Not by a long shot." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced normalcy. I helped Ava with her homework, made dinner, and tucked her into bed, all while my insides churned with rage and betrayal. Finally, with Ava asleep, I confronted Nate in our bedroom. "Start talking," I demanded. Nate sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It was a mistake, Clara, a stupid, terrible mistake." "How long?" I repeated my earlier question. He hesitated. 6 months. The words hit me like a physical blow. 6 months. Half a year of lies and deceit. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I don't know," Nate said, his eyes pleading. "Things between us have been different lately. I felt disconnected, and Melissa was just there." I laughed humorlessly. "Oh, so it's my fault because I've been busy with work and taking care of our daughter?" "No, that's not what I meant," Nate backpedaled. "I'm not blaming you. It was all me. I made a terrible choice, and I'm so sorry." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "Sorry isn't good enough, Nate. You've broken us. How am I supposed to trust you ever again?" As I stood there, staring at the man I thought I knew, I realized our life together would never be the same. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I stared at Nate across the kitchen table, my fingers wrapped tightly around my coffee mug. The silence between us was thick with unspoken words and lingering resentment. "I've been thinking," Nate said, breaking the tension. "Maybe we need a change of scenery." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath. "I think we should move in with my parents for a while." The suggestion hit me like a bucket of ice water. "Your parents? Nate, are you serious?" "Just hear me out," he pleaded. "It could be good for us. A fresh start, away from everything." I laughed bitterly. "You mean away from your mistakes?" Nate flinched but pressed on. "Mom and Dad have that big house. We'd have our own space and they could help with Ava. It would give us time to focus on us, on rebuilding our marriage." The word marriage made my stomach churn. Was there even anything left to rebuild? "Clara," Nate said softly, reaching for my hand. This time I didn't pull away. "I know I messed up, but I want to make this work. For us, for Ava, please just consider it." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of our vows pressing down on me. "For better or for worse, right?" "Fine," I said finally. "I'll think about it." The next few days were a whirlwind of discussions and preparations. Despite my reservations, I found myself agreeing to Nate's plan. Maybe a change would do us good. Maybe his parents' presence would keep him on the straight and narrow. The day of the move arrived all too quickly. As we pulled up to Evelyn and Alfred's sprawling suburban home, I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. Evelyn burst out of the front door, arms wide open. "Oh, my darlings," she cried, enveloping Nate in a hug before turning to Ava. "And there's my precious granddaughter." I hung back, watching the scene unfold. Alfred appeared in the doorway, nodding a greeting. "Clara," he said, his tone cordial but cool. "Alfred," I replied, forcing a smile. As we settled into our new living arrangement, I tried to remain optimistic. Evelyn and Alfred were polite, if a bit distant. Nate seemed more relaxed, more attentive. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this could work. But as the days turned into weeks, cracks began to appear in the facade. It started small. Evelyn forgetting to include me in meal planning, Alfred making offhand comments about my work hours, the way they'd fall silent when I entered a room, exchanging meaningful glances. One evening, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. "I just don't understand what he sees in her," Evelyn's voice drifted from the kitchen. "Nate could do so much better." Now, Alfred replied. "She's the mother of our grandchild. We have to tolerate her for Ava's sake." I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding. Tolerate me? Is that what they thought? "Clara?" Nate's voice startled me. "What are you doing?" I turned to face him, anger and hurt warring inside me. "Your parents," I hissed. "They hate me." Nate's brow furrowed. "What? No, they don't. You're imagining things." "Imagining things?" I repeated incredulously. "I just heard them talking about me. They said they have to tolerate me." "I'm sure you misunderstood," Nate said, his tone placating. "Mom and Dad love you." I stared at him, disbelief turning to fury. "Are you seriously taking their side?" "I'm not taking sides," Nate protested. "I just think you're overreacting." The word overreacting was the final straw. "You know what?" I snapped. "I'm done. This was a mistake. All of it." I stormed past him, heading for our room. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, I could hear Nate following me, pleading. "Clara, please, don't do this. We can work it out." I whirled to face him, tears stinging my eyes. "Work what out, Nate? Your affair, your parents' disdain, your inability to stand up for me? Tell me, what exactly are we working out?" As I stood there, suitcase in hand, I realized I was at a crossroads. Stay and fight for a marriage that felt more like a prison, or leave and face an uncertain future. The choice I made would change everything. I woke up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of hushed voices downstairs. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back in. I was in Nate's childhood bedroom, surrounded by his old trophies and faded posters, trying to salvage a marriage that felt like it was held together by fraying threads. Sighing, I dragged myself out of bed and made my way downstairs. The voices grew clearer as I approached the kitchen. "Just don't think she's trying hard enough," Evelyn was saying. "Nate deserves better." I froze, my hand on the doorknob. Nate's response was too low for me to hear, but Evelyn's dismissive snort came through loud and clear. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The conversation stopped abruptly, 3 pairs of eyes turning to me. "Good morning," I said, forcing a smile. "Clara, dear," Evelyn chirped, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We were just talking about you." "I heard," I replied coolly, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Nate cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Mom was just saying how she thinks we should all go out for dinner tonight, as a family." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what brought this on?" Alfred spoke up, his tone gruff. "We thought it might be good for you all to get out of the house. You've been cooped up here for weeks." I bit back a retort about whose idea it was for us to move in the first place. Instead, I nodded. "Sure, dinner sounds nice." The rest of the day passed in a blur of tension and forced politeness. By the time we arrived at the restaurant, my nerves were frayed to the breaking point. As we settled into our seats, Evelyn leaned across the table. "Clara, dear, I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of ordering for you. I know how indecisive you can be." I blinked, taken aback. "Actually, Evelyn, Oh, it's no trouble at all," she interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "I'm sure you'll love it." I looked to Nate for support, but he was engrossed in the wine list. Ava, sensing the tension, squirmed uncomfortably in her seat. The meal progressed, each moment more excruciating than the last. Evelyn dominated the conversation, barely allowing me to get a word in edgewise. Alfred made thinly veiled comments about my parenting skills, while Nate sat in silence, avoiding eye contact. Finally, as dessert arrived, I'd had enough. "Excuse me," I said, standing abruptly. "I need some air." I rushed out of the restaurant, gulping in the cool night air. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Clara?" Nate's voice came from behind me. "Are you okay?" I whirled to face him. "Am I okay? Are you seriously asking me that?" He looked bewildered. "What's wrong?" "What's wrong?" I repeated incredulously. "Your parents have been insulting me all night, and you've just sat there and let it happen." Nate's face hardened. "They're trying their best, Clara. You're not exactly making it easy." I stared at him, disbelief turning to anger. "So this is my fault now?" "I didn't say that," he backpedaled, "but you could try harder to get along with them." "Try harder?" I hissed. "I've been trying so hard I'm about to break, Nate, and you don't even see it." His expression softened. "Clara, please, let's not do this here." But I was beyond caring about making a scene. "No, Nate, we're doing this now. I can't keep pretending everything's okay when it's so clearly not." "What are you saying?" he asked, a note of fear creeping into his voice. I took a deep breath, the words I'd been holding back for weeks finally spilling out. "I'm saying that this isn't working. Moving in with your parents, trying to fix our marriage, it's all been a huge mistake." Nate's face crumpled. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. I think it's time we face the truth. Our marriage is over, Nate." As the words hung in the air between us, I realized there was no going back. The life I'd known, the future I'd planned, was crumbling around me. But amid the fear and uncertainty, I felt something else stirring, a spark of hope, a glimmer of freedom. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: I couldn't live like this anymore. The days following our disastrous dinner outing blurred together in a haze of tension and unspoken words. Nate and I barely spoke, tiptoeing around each other like strangers. Evelyn and Alfred's hostility, once veiled, now simmered just beneath the surface. One morning I woke to find Ava's bed empty. Panic gripped me as I rushed downstairs, only to find her giggling in the kitchen with Evelyn. "There you are, sleepyhead," Evelyn cooed, her saccharine tones setting my teeth on edge. "I was just teaching Ava how to make proper pancakes. Lord knows she needs someone to show her these things." I bit back a retort, forcing a smile for Ava's sake. "That's nice, sweetie. Why don't you go get dressed for school?" As Ava scampered off, Evelyn's demeanor changed instantly. "You know, Clara," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "it wouldn't kill you to take more interest in domestic matters. A woman should know how to keep a proper home." I felt my temper flare. "I manage just fine, Evelyn. My career doesn't make me any less of a mother or wife." She scoffed. "Does it? Because from where I'm standing, your family is falling apart." Her words hit like a physical blow. Before I could respond, Nate walked in. "Everything okay?" he asked, glancing between us. "Just fine, dear," Evelyn chirped, all sweetness again. "Clara and I were just having a little chat about family values." Nate nodded, avoiding my gaze. "Right. Well, I'm heading to work. Clara, don't forget we have that dinner with my boss tonight." I froze. "That's tonight?" "Nate, I can't. I have a deadline." "You can't cancel," he interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "This is important for my career." As he left, Evelyn's smug smile made my blood boil. See? A good wife would remember these things. That evening, I found myself at an upscale restaurant, seated across from Nate's boss and his wife. The conversation flowed around me as I struggled to focus, my mind still on my unfinished article. "So, Clara," Nate's boss turned to me. "Nate tells me you're a journalist, too. How's that going with family life?" Before I could answer, Nate jumped in. "Oh, Clara's thinking of scaling back her work, aren't you, honey? To focus more on home life." I stared at him, dumbfounded. What?" Nate's boss nodded approvingly. "Good for you. Family should always come first." The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. As soon as we got home, I rounded on Nate. "What the hell was that about? Scaling back my work?" He sighed, loosening his tie. "Come on, Clara. You know how important this promotion is." I was just saying what he wanted to hear. "At my expense?" I hissed, mindful of Ava sleeping upstairs. "Don't be so dramatic," he scoffed. "It's not like your job is as demanding as mine anyway." I reeled back as if slapped. "Is that what you really think?" Before he could answer, Alfred appeared in the doorway. "Everything all right? We could hear you from upstairs." Nate plastered on a smile. "Just a little disagreement, Dad. Nothing to worry about." Alfred's gaze settled on me, cold and judgmental. "Clara, I think it's time you started considering what's best for this family. Your selfish behavior is tearing it apart." Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and resentment came pouring out. "Selfish? I've given everything to this family. I've put up with your constant criticism, your son's infidelity, all while trying to maintain my career and raise my daughter. And I'm the selfish one?" The room fell silent. Nate and Alfred stared at me, shocked. In that moment, I realized I'd reached a crossroads. I could no longer pretend everything was fine. I couldn't keep sacrificing my self-respect, my career, my happiness for a family that didn't value me. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I can't do this anymore." As I turned to leave the room, I caught sight of Ava standing on the stairs, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. My heart broke, but I knew in that moment that I had to be strong, for both of us. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: things couldn't go on as they were. It was time for a change, no matter how terrifying that prospect might be. The morning after my outburst, I woke with a sense of dread weighing heavily on my chest. The house was eerily quiet as I made my way downstairs, bracing myself for the inevitable confrontation. I found Nate in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair disheveled. "We need to talk," he said, his voice hoarse. I nodded, pouring myself a cup. "Yes, we do." "I've been thinking about what you said last night," Nate began. "I know things haven't been easy." "Easy?" I interrupted, a bitter laugh escaping me. "Nate, things haven't been easy since the day I found out about your affair. Living here, with your parents constantly undermining me, has been a nightmare." Nate's face hardened. "They're just trying to help, Clara. Maybe if you made more of an effort." "Don't you dare put this on me," I hissed, my anger flaring. I've been trying so hard I'm exhausted, but it's never enough, is it? Not for you, not for them." Before Nate could respond, Evelyn swept into the kitchen. "Oh good, you're both up. Nate, dear, don't forget you promised to take your father golfing today." I stared at Nate incredulously. "Golfing? Now?" He at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. I forgot. Dad's been looking forward to it." "Of course he has," I muttered, shaking my head in disbelief. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Is there a problem, Clara? Surely you can handle things here for one day without my son." Something inside me snapped. "You know what, Evelyn? There is a problem. The problem is that your son and I are trying to have an important conversation about our marriage, and you're more concerned about a golf game." Evelyn's face flushed with anger. "How dare you speak to me like that in my own home? Nate, are you going to let her talk to me this way?" I turned to Nate, waiting to see what he would do. His eyes darted between us, panic evident on his face. "Mom, Clara, please, can't we all just calm down?" His weak attempt at peacemaking was the final straw. "No, Nate, we can't just calm down. This is our life, our marriage falling apart, and you're worried about keeping the peace?" I stormed out of the kitchen, my mind racing. As I reached the stairs, I heard Ava's small voice. "Mommy? Why is everyone yelling?" My heart clenched. I knelt down, pulling her into a hug. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy are just having a disagreement." "Are we going to have to leave?" she asked, her voice trembling. The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I pulled back, looking into her worried eyes. In that moment, I knew I had to make a decision, not just for myself, but for Ava. "I don't know, honey," I said honestly, "but I promise, whatever happens, we'll be okay." As I held my daughter, I heard Nate and Evelyn's voices rising again downstairs. The constant tension, the arguments, the silent treatment, it was all taking a toll on Ava. I couldn't let this continue. With a deep breath, I made my decision. I gently pulled away from Ava. "Sweetie, can you go to your room and pack a small bag? Just some clothes and your favorite toys." Her eyes widened. "Are we going on a trip?" I forced a smile. "Something like that. Go on now, I'll be right there." As Ava scampered off, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I should have called weeks ago. "Joan? It's Clara. I need your help. Can Ava and I stay with you for a while?" My sister's voice was warm and concerned. "Of course. What's going on?" I took a shaky breath. "I'm leaving Nate. I can't do this anymore." As I hung up, I felt a strange mix of terror and relief wash over me. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. Joan's apartment felt like a sanctuary after the suffocating atmosphere at Nate's parents' house. As I sank into her plush couch, the weight of the past few months seemed to lift slightly from my shoulders. "Okay, sis," Joan said, handing me a steaming mug of tea. "Start from the beginning." I poured out everything. Nate's affair, the move to his parents' house, the constant belittling and criticism. Joan listened intently, her lawyer's mind no doubt cataloging every detail. "Clara," she said when I finished, her voice gentle but firm, "this is emotional abuse. What they've been doing to you, it's not okay." Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. Abuse. I'd been so caught up in trying to make things work, I hadn't even realized. "We need to document everything," Joan continued, switching into lawyer mode. "Every insult, every manipulative comment, it'll be crucial if Nate tries to fight for custody of Ava." The mention of custody sent a chill down my spine. "You really think he'd do that?" Joan's expression hardened. "After what you've told me about his parents, we need to be prepared for anything." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into gathering evidence. I wrote down every memory of Evelyn and Alfred's mistreatment, every instance of Nate's neglect. Joan helped me organize it all, building a case that left me stunned when I saw it laid out. But even as I worked, a nagging doubt gnawed at me. Was I really ready to end my marriage, to tear apart Ava's family? My phone buzzed with a text from Nate. "We need to talk. Come to the house tomorrow." I showed Joan the message, my stomach churning. "I have to go, don't I?" She nodded grimly. "Yes, but not alone. I'm coming with you." The next day, we pulled up to Nate's parents' house. My palms were sweaty as I rang the doorbell. Nate answered, his eyes widening at the sight of Joan. "What's she doing here?" he demanded. "Moral support," I said firmly, pushing past him into the house. Evelyn and Alfred were waiting in the living room, their faces masks of disapproval. "Well, if it isn't the prodigal daughter-in-law," Evelyn sneered. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm here to talk about divorce proceedings, Nate, and custody arrangements for Ava." The room erupted into chaos. Nate started pleading, Evelyn shrieked about the sanctity of marriage, and Alfred thundered about ungrateful wives. Through it all, Joan stood beside me, a pillar of strength. "Enough!" I shouted, silencing the room. "I've made my decision. I won't live like this anymore, and I won't let Ava grow up in this toxic environment." Nate's face contorted with anger. "You can't take my daughter away from me. Watch me," I retorted, my voice ice cold. "I have documented evidence of the emotional abuse I've endured in this house. Do you really want to take this to court?" The color drained from Nate's face. Evelyn, however, wasn't backing down. "You ungrateful little." She lunged forward, her hand raised as if to slap me. Joan stepped between us, her voice sharp as a knife. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mrs. Thompson. Assault charges wouldn't look good in a custody battle." Evelyn recoiled, sputtering with rage. I turned to Nate, my heart pounding. "This is your last chance, Nate. Are you going to stand with your wife and daughter, or with them?" The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. I could see the conflict in Nate's eyes, the war between the man I'd married and the son his parents had molded. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't leave my parents, Clara. They need me." In that moment I felt something inside me shatter. The last lingering hope that we could salvage our marriage crumbled to dust, but along with the pain came a surge of determination. "Then we're done," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Expect to hear from my lawyer." As Joan and I walked out of the house, I felt like I was leaving more than just a failed marriage behind. I was leaving behind years of self-doubt, of compromise, of settling for less than I deserved. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew I had the strength to face them. And more importantly, I had the strength to show Ava what it meant to stand up for oneself, to demand respect and love. As we drove away, I allowed myself a small smile. This wasn't an ending. It was a new beginning. The day of the final confrontation arrived with a sense of foreboding. Joan and I had spent weeks preparing, but as we approached Nate's lawyer's office, my stomach churned with anxiety. "Remember," Joan whispered as we entered the building, You hold all the cards. Stay strong." Nate was already there, looking haggard and defeated. His eyes met mine briefly before darting away. His lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, eyed us coolly. "Let's get started, shall we?" she said, gesturing to the conference room. As we settled into our seats, I couldn't help but think of Ava, waiting at Joan's apartment with a babysitter. Everything I was about to do was for her. Nate's lawyer spoke first. "My client is willing to agree to joint custody, with Ava primarily residing with him and his parents." I felt a surge of anger. "Absolutely not," I snapped. "I have evidence of the emotional abuse I suffered in that house. Ava will not be subjected to that environment." The lawyer's eyes narrowed. "Allegations of abuse are serious, Mrs. Thompson. Do you have proof?" Joan slid a thick folder across the table. "We have documented every instance of mistreatment, corroborated by witnesses and psychological evaluations." As Nate and his lawyer pored over the documents, I saw the color drain from his face. "Clara," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I had no idea it was this bad." I laughed bitterly. "Of course you didn't. You were too busy trying to please your parents to notice what they were doing to your wife and daughter." Nate's lawyer cleared her throat. "In light of this evidence, we're prepared to discuss a more equitable arrangement." The next few hours were a blur of negotiations. Custody arrangements, division of assets, alimony. Every detail of our lives together was dissected and divided. Through it all, I held firm, buoyed by Joan's steady presence and the memory of everything I'd endured. Finally, we reached an agreement. Primary custody of Ava would be mine, with Nate granted visitation rights. Our assets would be split fairly, and I would retain our family home. As Nate picked up the pen to sign the divorce papers, he hesitated. "Clara," he said, his voice breaking, "I'm sorry for everything. I should have protected you and Ava." For a moment I felt a flicker of the love we once shared, but then I remembered the years of neglect, of choosing his parents over his family, and my resolve hardened. "It's too late for sorry, Nate," I said quietly. "Just sign the papers." With a shaky hand, Nate signed. As I added my own signature, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was done. I was free. As we left the office, Joan squeezed my hand. "You did it, sis. I'm so proud of you." But our victory was short-lived. As we stepped out of the building, we were confronted by a furious Evelyn and Alfred. "You conniving witch!" Evelyn shrieked. "How dare you turn our son against us?" Alfred loomed over me, his face red with rage. "You'll regret this, Clara. We'll make sure you never see Ava again." I felt a moment of panic, but then something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up anger and frustration came pouring out. "Enough!" I shouted, my voice ringing through the street. "You will not threaten me or my daughter ever again. Your reign of manipulation and abuse ends now." I turned to Nate, who had followed us out. "This is your last chance, Nate. Your parents or your daughter. Choose." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. I could see the conflict in Nate's eyes, the war between the man I'd married and the son his parents had molded. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I choose Ava." Evelyn let out a wail of despair, while Alfred's face contorted with fury, but I barely noticed them. In that moment, looking at Nate's defeated form, I realized something profound. I didn't need his choice. I didn't need his approval or his parents' acceptance. I had everything I needed: my daughter, my freedom, and my self-respect. As Joan and I walked away, leaving the chaos behind, I felt a surge of triumph. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it head-on. The old Clara, the one who had bent and compromised and suffered in silence, was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth, who would fight for herself and her daughter with every breath. This wasn't just an ending, it was a new beginning, full of possibility and hope, and I was ready for it. 5 years had passed since that fateful day when I walked away from Nate and his toxic family. Life hadn't been easy, but it had been mine, filled with hard-won victories, cherished moments with Ava, and a sense of peace I'd never known before. I was in the middle of preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Ava, now a spirited 13-year-old, called out, "I'll get it, Mom." A moment later, I heard her startled voice. "Dad?" My blood ran cold. I rushed to the door, wiping my hands on my apron. There stood Nate, a shadow of his former self. His clothes were disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, and he reeked of alcohol. Clara, he slurred, swaying slightly. I need your help. I instinctively stepped in front of Ava, shielding her. Nate, what are you doing here? He stumbled forward and I held up a hand to stop him. Please, he begged. I've lost everything. My job, my savings. Even Mom and Dad have cut me off. I didn't know where else to go. A part of me, the part that had once loved this man, ached to help him. But I remembered the years of neglect, the pain he'd put me through, and I steeled myself. Ava, honey, I said calmly, go to your room, please. Once Ava was out of earshot, I turned back to Nate. You can't be here, I said firmly. You're drunk and you're scaring our daughter. Our daughter, he repeated bitterly, the one you took from me. Anger flared within me. I didn't take her from you, Nate. You chose to let her go when you refused to stand up to your parents. He lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my arm. You ruined my life, he shouted. For a moment, fear gripped me, but then something shifted. I was no longer the woman who would cower or make excuses for him. I was stronger now. With a swift motion, I broke free of his grip and pushed him back. No, Nate, I said, my voice steady and strong. You ruined your own life, and I won't let you ruin mine or Ava's any longer. I saw a flicker of the old Nate in his eyes, shame, regret, and a hint of admiration. But it was too late for that now. I'm calling you a cab, I said. And then I'm calling my lawyer. This ends now, Nate. No more surprise visits, no more manipulations. If you want to see Ava, you'll do it through proper channels, and you'll do it sober. As I dialed the cab company, I felt a presence behind me. Ava stood there, her eyes wide but determined. Is Dad okay? She asked softly. I knelt down to her level, my heart swelling with love and pride for this brave, compassionate girl. He's going through a tough time, sweetie, but that's not our responsibility anymore. We're going to be okay. As we watched the cab drive away with Nate, I felt a profound sense of closure. The last lingering threads of my old life had been severed, and the future stretched out before us, bright and full of possibility. Later that night, as Ava slept peacefully, I sat on our porch, sipping tea and reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the struggles, the moments of doubt, they had all shaped me into the woman I was now. I thought of the women out there who might be where I was 5 years ago, trapped, afraid, doubting themselves. I wished I could tell them that there was hope, that they were stronger than they knew. As the stars twinkled above, I made a silent vow. I would use my voice, my experiences, to help others find their strength. My story wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving, about reclaiming one's power and dignity. Tomorrow, I decided I would start writing again. Not just articles, but a book. My story, raw and honest, a beacon of hope for others. The cool night breeze caressed my face, and I smiled. Life wasn't perfect, but it was beautifully, wonderfully mine. And for the first time in years, I was excited about what the future held. As I headed back inside, I paused at Ava's room, watching her sleep. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt had been worth it. For her, for me, for the life we'd built together. This wasn't just an ending. It was a new chapter, brimming with hope, strength, and the unshakable knowledge that we were going to be more than okay. We were going to be extraordinary.